Gartner just said that 50% of companies who laid off workers because of AI will rehire for the exact same roles by 2027. Forrester surveyed over 1,000 executives and found that 55% of companies regret replacing humans with AI. And McKinsey's 2025 State of AI report found that 88% of companies claim that they're using AI, but only 6% are seeing any meaningful impact on their bottom line. Nearly 2/3 are still stuck in experimentation or pilot phases. So, if AI isn't delivering what it promised, why are companies still laying off thousands of engineers? Why are headlines still telling you that your career in tech is over? And why are companies rehiring employees and reversing course? Hi, I'm Suleiman. I've been working in tech since 2015 at just 18 years old, and now I run my own businesses across cloud and AI consulting, software, and my education company, where I've helped more than 900 people master cloud engineering and land six-figure jobs, including at companies like AWS. Now, in this video, I'm going to break down what's actually going horribly wrong when companies replace engineers with AI. The real reasons behind these layoffs that have nothing to do with AI capability, and what this means for your career right now and how you can stay ahead of the curve. So let's start with Amazon, because it's the best example of how things can go horribly wrong when you replace your engineers with AI that is not ready. Amazon obviously isn't some random startup figuring things out, right? This is arguably the most operationally intense tech company on the planet. They are famous for being ruthlessly efficient and cutting low performers without any sort of hesitation. If any company should be able to make AI work at scale, it's Amazon. In November 2024, Amazon issued a company-wide mandate. Every engineer had to use AI. 80% of engineers were required to use AI tools at least once a week. This was baked into their KPIs, which are the metrics that your performance is measured against as an employee. So if you weren't using AI, it would show up in your performance review. In December 2025, Amazon's Kiro AI coding tool partly caused a 13-hour outage on AWS. Now, in March 2026, things have gotten even worse. Firstly, Amazon's Q's AI contributed to an incident that caused nearly 120,000 lost orders and roughly 1.6 million website errors across Amazon's marketplaces. Customers were seeing incorrect delivery times when adding items to their carts. An internal review directly named the AI tool as a primary contributor. Now, 3 days later, on March 5th, another outage caused a 99% drop in orders across all of North America, 6.3 million lost orders. The internal document said that there was no automated testing before the changes went live, and that a single person could push a major change to production, meaning that the live systems that real customers are using have no safety checks whatsoever. I know, crazy, right? Amazon is now rolling out a 90-day safety reset targeting 335 of their most critical systems. Engineers must get a two-person review before making any changes to production, and junior engineers must get their code reviewed by senior engineers, especially the ones generated with AI. They have to use formal documentation and approval processes, and all the system owners up to VP level are being told to audit every single co-production change in their organizations and the departments. Amazon is having to pump the brakes and add friction back into their own processes because AI tools have caused tremendous failures at scale. And you have to think about, if this is happening at Amazon, what do you think is happening at every other company with far less capable talent? Which is where I want to go deeper, because when people talk about AI going wrong, they are missing the bigger picture. The first problem really is process and governance. This is probably the biggest one. When an AI tool suggests a code change, which, by the way, most engineers have no real idea whether the actual code being generated is safe or not, but the question isn't just whether the suggestion is correct. The real question is, what happens after the suggestion is made? Does the company have proper review processes? Is there automated testing that catches bugs before the change is reaching customers? Is there a staged rollout, meaning that you push a change to a small percentage of users in the application first to see if anything breaks before rolling it out to more people? Is there a rollback plan, meaning if something does go wrong, can you quickly undo the change and restore the system? At Amazon, According to their own internal documents, a lot of their basic controls were either missing or being bypassed. So a single person could push a change that affected millions of customers with no safety net. That's just bad processes being executed. It's not AI. The AI just made it way worse because it dramatically increases the speed and the volume of changes being made, which means that weak processes get exposed way faster and at a much larger scale. Now, the second problem is at the organizational level. When companies are laying off experienced engineers over the last few years, they are removing the people who understood why systems were built a certain way. The people who knew that if you change this one configuration, 3 other services downstream are going to break. The people who had the ability to make judgment calls and immediately recognize when things are dangerous because they had seen this exact failure pattern before. And you can't just skip that. And like nowadays, everyone seems to be an architect, right? Because of AI. But they've skipped the real reps that you get with hands-on experience in production environments. You know, that kind of knowledge that companies have just lost, and it lives inside of the heads of the engineers who spent years working on those systems. And when you lay off those people, you get 6.3 million lost orders. The third problem is product fit. AI works really well in clearly defined, narrow, and well-structured tasks and workflows. Despite all of the spending, it's still very messy, and that's obviously an opportunity for sure for engineers, right? Consultants, entrepreneurs. But the gap between what we're being told that the capabilities of AI are by these CEOs and the actual reliability that AI is demonstrating is really wide. Real production environments are very messy. Customers don't know what they want. There are legacy systems that nobody fully understands. There are patches on top of patches. There are edge cases that only show up under specific conditions. And AI is simply not reliable enough yet to handle that level of complexity without experienced humans in the loop. Irrespective of what you hear from these CEOs that are on the internet, online, posting to share, to pump their own stocks, right? Scale AI recently benchmarked the top models, Claude, Gemini, OpenAI, on real multi-file software engineering tasks using actual production-grade code. The results, these models could only solve 20 to 30% of tasks. Meanwhile, the AI companies themselves claim 70 to 80% success rates. Make of that what you will. So when you start putting all of these 3 things together, what you get is companies adopted AI faster than they built the controls needed to use it safely. They laid off the engineers who had deep systems knowledge and experience that could bail them out. And then they're trying to force AI into environments and products that it's just not ready for. Engineers aren't actually being replaced by AI. It's just companies making operational decisions that are now blowing up in their faces. So if the evidence is so clear, then why are more layoffs being announced every single week? I think this is the biggest frustration that I'm seeing right now in the industry and amongst tech workers, especially when you're seeing Jack Dorsey just cut 40% of Block. Meta reportedly planning to cut 20% of his workforce. And this is where you need to understand that there are multiple layers to this, and some of this isn't necessarily what you want to hear. The first layer is stock price game. When you announce AI-driven layoffs, Wall Street rewards you. Block stock jumped over 20% the same day that Jack Dorsey announced the cuts. Bumble announced AI layoffs and got a 25% bump. There's actually a term for this now, AI washing. Companies attaching the word AI to cost-cutting decisions that have nothing to do with the current AI capabilities. The second layer is the AI and cloud infrastructure funding. Meta, Amazon, Microsoft, and Alphabet are all collectively spending over $700 billion on AI infrastructure in 2026. That is after $320 billion in 2025. Now, that money has to obviously come from somewhere, and it's easier to redirect payroll savings into data centers than to ask investors for more capital. The third layer is a bit of an ego game, and let me explain. A lot of CEOs have committed so publicly and so aggressively to the AI narrative that they cannot afford to be wrong. They've stood on stages, they've told investors AI is going to transform their companies, they've told the press that they're going to be AI first, and now they are trapped. Because admitting that AI isn't ready to replace experienced engineers would make them look incompetent, which, let's be real, A lot of them are. So what do? They double down because they have to. They keep cutting, they keep the narrative going, and keep the funding coming in from Wall Street. So are we at the peak of the AI frenzy? Probably, especially when you're accounting for the tricks being played right now and how the same money is being circulated across big tech companies. And the fourth layer, to me, this kind of connects all of this together, is a pattern that actually started a few years ago. When Elon Musk took over Twitter in 2022, he fired roughly 80% of the workforce. Everyone predicted that the platform would collapse. It didn't. The site kept running and by many accounts operated way leaner afterwards. I think every CEO in Silicon Valley watched that happen and thought we could do something similar here. There's been such an overhiring in the last 5 to 6 years, and Elon Musk essentially made the bet that most employees were not doing anything, right? I mean, I've worked in big companies, startups, government agencies, Fortune 500s, and I could tell you that most people actually do nothing. That's the reality. I mean, we have all seen the day in life TikToks, right? What's happening now is that companies are copying essentially that same playbook, but using AI as a narrative wrapper. Fire people to drive efficiency, boost margins, get a stock price bump, and frame it all as the technology is improving. Now, in 2025, across all sectors, there were 1.17 million layoffs. Only about 55,000 of those were directly attributed to AI. That's less than 5%. So the vast majority of layoffs have actually nothing to do with AI replacing anyone's work. That's what's happening in the industry. But what about engineers and professionals? Even at companies that aren't doing mass layoffs, what I'm seeing from the inside by working with these companies is that AI is being used to completely change the deal between employer and employee. The expectation is quickly shifting. One engineer with AI tools is now expected to produce what used to require 2 or 3 other engineers. More features, more systems, more responsibility. But crucially, basically the same compensation. So is this extra responsibility and know-how empowering? No. Not really. They are doing it to extract more output per person so they can justify running leaner teams. And they might be right. Don't get me wrong. A lot of people do the bare minimum nowadays. But let me be very clear though. This isn't anything new. This is the nature of working in tech. The reality is things are always shifting and changing. The same thing happened many years ago when we used to have front-end and back-end developers, and we had the emergence of the full-stack engineer that could basically do both reasonably well. The layoffs aren't really about AI replacing jobs. It's more about having fewer people, more output, but with the same compensation. So the question then becomes, how do you position yourself in this new environment? So here is where I want to give you a directional bet based on what I'm seeing from the inside, working with the companies, trying to implement this AI stuff, right? The core problem that I keep coming back to is this. Companies are adopting AI faster than they are building the operational readiness to use it safely. They are rushing to deploy AI tools without the review processes, automated testing, the stage rollouts, the rollback plans, right? So it's no wonder that there are so many system failures and production outages right now. So here is where I would focus on. Firstly, become a systems thinker. This is the single most valuable skill in the entire industry right now, and it's the skill that AI fundamentally cannot replace. Systems thinking means understanding how things connect, why a change in one service cascades to 3 others, how to evaluate the impact of a deployment before it happens, how to look at a system holistically rather than just one component in front of you. Every single incident at Amazon came down to a failure of systems level thinking. Someone made a change without understanding how it affected everything else. If you can think in systems, you will always be in demand. Secondly, be AI native, not AI dependent. Learn the tools to use AI to accelerate your work. Use them to move faster, but never outsource your judgment. You have to use AI as a collaborator, but still verify outputs and still apply your own understanding of the system before approving anything. And thirdly, understand that every AI system has to run somewhere. It has to be deployed, it has to be scaled, it has to be secured, and it has to be monitored. The gap between AI working in a sandbox environment and actually working in production comes down to whether the people building and managing the systems actually understand how it works. And the foundation of all of this is cloud engineering and architecture. AI and cloud are essentially inseparable partners. You can't have one without the other. All of the AI models are running on cloud infrastructure. Those models need compute power to process requests, they need storage to hold data, they need networking to communicate between the services, and it needs security controls to make sure the right people and the right systems have access to the right things at the right time. Those are the skills that cloud engineers have. And right now, McKinsey's research shows that 95% of organizations cite a lack of cloud talent as one of their biggest roadblocks that they face. AWS has reported a global shortage of 6 million cloud professionals. The IDC states that in 2026, over 90% of organizations worldwide will feel the pain of the IT skills crisis. And despite all of the spending, hundreds of billions of dollars, AI is very much incredibly messy. The gap between what CEOs are telling us AI can do and what AI is actually demonstrating in production is enormous. And that's exactly why you are seeing companies like OpenAI planning to nearly double their workforce from 4,500 to 8,000 employees by the end of 2026. So the company that's been pushing that AI is going to replace their workforce is doubling their workforce. Make it make sense. The AI race is moving so fast that these companies cannot afford to fall behind. Anthropic is taking the enterprise market share, and OpenAI is reportedly planning on just copying them. Google is smashing it with Gemini, and the stakes right now are super high, and the opportunity is too valuable to miss out on. And that's why you're seeing the resurgence in hiring across the market for talented engineers. As always, I'm rooting for you. Good luck.